Final Fantasy XII, released in 2006, marks the last Final Fantasy game in the PlayStation 2 era. While I did spend some time with it upon its initial release, I did not even come close to finishing it. So for the purposes of this review, we will be looking at the newly released Final Fantasy XII: The Zodiac Age. And yes, there will be minor spoilers. Final Fantasy XII puts us back into the world of Ivalice, one that's not too unfamiliar due to games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced, which is one of my personal favorites. The world is huge, rich, and vibrant, with a ton of different interesting locales to explore. The lore is deep in Ivalice, and we barely scratch the surface of what is there to find in the game. Final Fantasy XII follows Vaughn as he gets caught up in a plan to overtake the Arcadian Empire, joined by a childhood friend Penelo, Balthier the Sky Pirate and his partner Fran, the former Queen Ashe, and Captain Bosch, who had both thought to be dead. Unfortunately for me, one of the missteps in this game comes in its characters. While for the most part the characters are great in a vacuum, there is little to no actual character development for majority of our leads. Some characters do little to actually move the plot or justify their placement with our group. Personally, I find Balthier to be the standout character, but even he doesn't really evolve as a character. There are whole portions of the later parts of the game where spending more time with the swashbuckling Sky Pirate could have greatly helped flesh out his character. Others, such as Penelo, suffer from "why are you here" syndrome. Arguably the main antagonists of the game are more compelling characters, but largely we have to find out more about them from the other means. There are great characters in this game and great character moments, they just come few and far between, unfortunately. Final Fantasy XII tries to break itself from the traditional Final Fantasy mold, with introducing an almost MMO-like battle experience. While you are not beholden to it, the game really encourages you to utilize its gambit system. The gambit system lets you take more control of the AI by letting you set sometimes detailed if-then commands. While you are responsible for the turn-by-turn commands of your party, depending on how you implement it, you can largely stay hands-off and take over when need be. There still isn't much like the gambit system even 11 years later, which just goes to show how groundbreaking it really is. While I'm more of a traditionalist and prefer an old-school turn-based combat system, I deeply admire and appreciate the system as a whole. I find the game to still be beautiful, and being able to achieve this look off of a PlayStation 2 is pretty outstanding. The in-game music, while it's good, I did not find it to be overly memorable, especially compared to the other Final Fantasy installments. I feel where the game really shines is in its voice acting. I find that Final Fantasy XII still has some of the best voice acting in any video game. Unlike its predecessor Final Fantasy X, these voices really fit the characters. Upon further examination, stage and theater performers were tapped to provide all the voices. I think that this fits nearly perfect with the setting, and the actors bring a realism to their roles. I wish that I enjoyed the entire game as much as I enjoyed the first 3/4 or so. The beginning of this game is truly amazing, really pulling me into this world and drawing me to its characters. The world is so full of interesting people and worlds that truly feel like they were given the love they deserved. Unfortunately, this doesn't extend to the end of the game. This game is very long, and portions, especially near the end, just begin to drag and become overly repetitive. It's during these moments I really missed having story elements. There's one dungeon in particular that just keeps going and going. Each floor had a nearly identical puzzle with a random non-story boss in between. This really began to fatigue me. In terms of characters, I do not have as big an issue with Vaughn as others, but I can see where one might not care for him. Largely outside of the first 3 hours or so, he is irrelevant to the story. I viewed him as more of a way to see the real main characters in the story, Balthier, Ashe, and Bosch. While a gambit system is something to be admired, I'm really not a fan. There are portions later in the game where all I found myself needing to do was basically steer the ship, due to my gambits into the game pretty much played itself. Which may not be a bad thing, I just became bored, especially as the story began to drag. At the end of the day, Final Fantasy XII is a game I feel every fan of the series really needs to play. For whatever reason, it is largely regarded as a redheaded stepchild of the series. While it is not my favorite in the franchise, I think the game is so close to being a masterpiece. Doing some research into its development, you can come to find that there's plenty of behind-the-scenes drama going on, which is really unfortunate. Maybe as time goes on, I will really go to appreciate this game more, especially as I began to go back through the previous entries. For now, this is a great game that is oh so close to being special.